Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Janelle had never pictured herself as a bride gliding down a marble aisle in a satin gown. Her world was built on practicality. Her mother's double shifts at the nursing home, the smell of takeout fried chicken after late-night study sessions in the cramped two-bedroom apartment where she and her two younger brothers learned to stretch every dollar. Fairy tales did not exist for girls who counted change at the grocery store. But love did, because survival was the first language of her family. When Elijah stepped into her life, he needed nothing more than authenticity. He was not a polished debutante's escort or a Wall Street investor. He was tall, earnest, and bore hands hardened by janitorial work in a warehouse. Their first connection happened at the community college cafeteria in Newark. He offered her his last slice of pizza when he saw her hesitate at the vending machine. That small kindness led to late-night library study sessions, laughter over ramen noodles, and eventually the kind of bond that outlasts late fees, bounce checks, and heartbreaks. He listened when she spoke, held her when she wept, and never judged the scars life had carved into her. Love, she discovered, was not about glitter. It was about being present. 3 years into their relationship, on a chilly Thursday evening when the street lamps flickered to life, Elijah led Janelle back to the same weathered bench outside the library where they first connected. He carried a small velvet box, its contents modest, its meaning immense. Inside lay a delicate silver band, no gemstone to catch the light, but engraved with tiny initials only they could decipher. "I do not have much," he whispered, voice catching on hope. "But I have you, and I promise to spend every night earning that privilege." Janelle's heart thundered beneath the dim glow. She said yes before he could finish speaking, because she did not need luxury. She needed loyalty. Their wedding planning began, but not in a glossy bridal boutique or behind the lens of an event planner. It began in her late grandmother's backyard in New Jersey, a place tethered to memories of impromptu cookouts, humming cicadas, and summer naps on a rickety wooden swing. The yard was overgrown, littered with old garden tools and broken flower pots, but it held the essence of home. With borrowed rakes, secondhand paint, and endless optimism, they vowed to transform it into their sanctuary. They spent weekends pulling up weeds, sanding reclaimed wood pallets into benches, and stringing bargain lights around leaning fence posts. Janelle found her mother's wedding dress in a dusty cedar chest, a yellowed, torn relic that she painstakingly steamed, patched, and coaxed back to life. Elijah borrowed a suit 2 sizes too large from his cousin and altered it just enough to stand tall without apology. Their guest list was small: immediate family, a few close friends, and neighbors whose folding chairs they borrowed. To feed everyone, Janelle's aunties baked cornbread, rice dishes, and pastries the night before. A cousin with a battered mixer baked the cake in her tiny kitchen. As they prepared, Janelle's college friends began responding in the group chat. She had shared snapshots of the backyard's progress, but some replies stung. One teased, "Is this a wedding or a yard sale?" Another asked, "Should we bring towels for the mud?" The most cutting message came when someone replied to all, "I hope there is Wi-Fi, because if the food is as cheap as the decorations, I'm going to live stream to escape." Janelle's chest tightened, but she did not reply. The laughter echoed in her mind, threatening to unravel everything they had built. When Elijah squeezed her hand and told her, "Ignore them," she chose to heed love over mockery. On the morning of the wedding, the sky was a brilliant blue, a rare, perfect gift. Janelle donned her mother's restored gown, its lace delicate against her skin. She carried a bouquet of wildflowers Elijah had gathered at dawn: daisies, Queen Anne's lace, and sun-baked lavender. The ceremony arch stood crooked but charming, swathed in paper flowers they crafted together. Chairs lined in semicircles, scattered with mismatched cushions, looked out over the unkempt grass. The playlist Elijah curated, old Motown hits mixed with modern love songs, floated through borrowed speakers. As guests trickled in, Janelle's heart wavered between joy and apprehension. She had learned to expect disappointment. Then she heard familiar voices, now dripping with condescension. "First up, girl, this looks like a church potluck gone rogue," Kesha muttered. "I cannot believe she wore that dress," Tamika whispered. Another voice snickered. "Is that cake leaning from hunger?" Phones appeared. Laughter punctured the soft hush, and a sacred moment felt invaded. Janelle's knees shook. Sweat gathered at her hairline. But when she turned and saw Elijah waiting with a steady smile, she steadied herself. He kissed her palm, nodded, and together they walked down the makeshift aisle, marrying one another, not the applause. Their vows were straightforward declarations of endurance. Janelle promised to stand by Elijah when the world offered them nothing but walls. Elijah vowed to hold Janelle through hunger, tears, and loneliness. They spoke of late-night worries, of shared blankets over a broken heater, of prayers answered in small ways, a bag of rice, a neighbor's leftover casserole, a friend's unexpected ride to work. No one tried to pamper them with platitudes, only their voices cracking and honest. As guests wiped tears and smiled, Janelle's eyes caught the mocking trio again, huddled under a tree snapping candids. Fear rose like a tide, but Elijah gently brushed a stray hair from her face and whispered, "We see what is real." After the ceremony, the crowd mingled over plates of cornbread and cold lemonade. Laughter, genuine this time, bubbled around stories of childhood antics. Even as she danced barefoot with her brothers, the sting lingered like a bruise. That night, after the lights were dim and guests gone, she sat on the porch steps, heels in her hands, tears silent. Elijah sat beside her, his arm a shield. She finally admitted, "It hurts." He kissed her temple. "Then we build something so strong they will never laugh again." Reality hit the next week. Elijah's overnight warehouse job ended when his security firm lost its contract. Janelle's cleaning shifts dwindled as offices cut costs. Their meager savings, $300 earmarked for emergencies, evaporated on rent and overdue bills. They canceled cable, pawned electronics, and sold anything they could part with. Yet each month, they tucked away $100 under the mattress, a silent pact they called Future Foundation. When Janelle found a battered dresser on the sidewalk, she hauled it home by bus. Elijah watched tutorial videos on his cracked phone, borrowed tools from a neighbor, and together they restored the piece. She painted it a warm cream. He replaced knobs with thrift store finds. They posted on a neighborhood buy and sell page, handcrafted dresser, reclaimed materials. It sold within 24 hours for $70, a small victory that felt monumental. They kept going, chairs, small tables, picture frames. Backyard Heirlooms was born not from a marketing plan, but from necessity and grit. They worked nights and weekends, transforming curbside cast-offs into treasures. Bit by bit, they saved. 2 years into the side hustle, they secured permission to use a tiny storage room attached to their apartment building as a workshop. They installed shelves, cobbled together workbenches, and plugged in secondhand lamps. Word spread through the neighborhood and local Facebook groups. Orders trickled in. Elijah picked up a part-time job at a hardware store, trading employee discounts for plywood and paint. Janelle juggled cleaning gigs and furniture fixes. Her hands calloused and strong, her heart cautious but hopeful. One cold December morning, they counted their savings and realized they had enough for a down payment on Janelle's grandmother's long-lost house, the very property that had been sold at auction when debt collectors came knocking years before. They borrowed a small loan against the credit Janelle had carefully rebuilt. On a crisp January afternoon, exactly 3 years after their wedding, they signed the papers in a modest title office in Newark. No loud announcements, no champagne showers, just keys in hand and a quiet drive back to the backyard that had once drawn mockery. The house smelled of mildew, but held echoes of laughter and love. As Janelle stepped inside, Elijah whispered, "We came home." Renovations began immediately. They tore out rotted floorboards, patched walls with spackle, and painted every square inch themselves. Friends who had scoffed did not offer to help. Only Janelle's aunt and a kind neighbor showed up regularly. Even then, most of the labor fell to Janelle and Elijah, scraping wallpaper at dawn, installing cabinets by moonlight. They cleared the backyard of debris, laid new grass seed, and planted a small herb garden. Once, as they hauled wheelbarrows of dirt to the curb, Janelle paused and looked back at the garage where they were starting to store finished pieces. She squeezed Elijah's hand. Remember their laughter? He nodded, eyes distant but resolute. They do not know what we know, he said. The truth was their journey had taught them resilience, not bitterness. They carried no malice, only a resolve to build a life defined by love, not by the opinions of those who never believed. Then came a message from Kesha. It arrived unexpectedly on a Tuesday afternoon. Hey Jay, hope you are well. I'm back in Jersey after a rough stint out west. If you know of work, let me know. Thank you. Janelle's chest clenched. Kesha had been one of the first to mock their wedding, had posted stories and laughed on camera. For a moment, Janelle considered ignoring the text. She thought of her grandmother's yard, once derided, now brimming with new life. She replied, "We have projects at the workshop if you are willing." The next morning, Kesha arrived in jeans, no makeup, hair pulled back in a ponytail. She did not mention the past. She simply asked where to start. Janelle handed her safety gloves and bubble wrap. Elijah showed her how to label pieces for shipping. Kesha worked steadily, fingers trembling only when she encountered the weight of real labor after months of instability. When she left that day, she looked at Janelle and Elijah with a quiet vulnerability. "Thank you," she said, voice soft. "I needed this." It was enough. Weeks later, Tamika, another bridesmaid, another echo of old wounds, reached out. "Left home with the boys. Shelters are full. Need overnight work. Anything." Janelle did not hesitate. She texted back, "Yes. We have a client who needs deep cleaning. I will send you their information." Within days, Tamika was working late shifts, scrubbing floors and walls. She never asked about the rate. It was enough that someone trusted her. After her first paycheck, Tamika sent a photo of her two sons seated on new bunk beds. "We have a little place," the text read. Janelle stared at the image and blinked away tears. Not because she was proud of her generosity, but because she remembered what it felt like to have nowhere to go. She did not write, "I told you." She wrote, "So glad." The silence that followed carried more weight than any apology. Life in the renovated house settled into a rhythm. The workshop stood at the end of the driveway, its garage door often open. Inside, salvage barnwood and flaking paint transformed into polished pieces under their hands. Janelle handled design. Elijah wielded tools. Kesha photographed finished pieces. Tamika managed deliveries with her reliable minivan. They worked without fanfare. No website at first, no hashtags, just word of mouth and late-night community posts. The backyard, once a source of ridicule, blossomed with sunflowers, tomatoes, and rows of mint. Neighbors dropped by, drawn by the scent of fresh soil and sawdust. On Sunday afternoons, Janelle grilled chicken over charcoal, and they all ate under the string lights. Laughter, this time genuine, filled the air. The house became a home not just for Janelle and Elijah, but for a chosen family built on second chances. Occasionally, in quiet moments, Kesha would linger at a workbench, hands still. One rainy evening, she glanced at a framed wedding photo on the shelf. The crooked arch, the faded dress, and three scowling figures blurred in the background. "Remember this?" she asked softly. Janelle set down her sander and walked over. Kesha's eyes glimmered. "I was awful." The silence that followed was heavy, but not cruel. Janelle wrapped her arms around Kesha's shoulders. "I know you were hurting," she said. "You are here now." Kesha sniffed. "Thank you for letting me in." There are no recriminations, just grace. Tamika's gratitude took a different shape. She volunteered to host a neighborhood cleanup day, rallying families to clear trash from a vacant lot across the alley. She asked Janelle and Elijah to lead a furniture repair workshop for kids interested in crafts. The turnout surprised everyone. Dozens of teenagers wielding paintbrushes and hammers under watchful guidance. As Janelle demonstrated how to strip paint safely, she watched Tamika greet each student with encouragement. The same woman who once scoffed at their do-it-yourself wedding was now helping the next generation create rather than mock. When the sun set and the lot cleared, Tamika caught Janelle's eye and mouthed, "Thank you." Janelle did not hug her. She simply smiled, pride bright in her gaze. Their story began to ripple beyond the neighborhood. Clients from neighboring towns requested custom orders. A small local magazine in North Jersey featured backyard heirlooms in a human interest column. No media frenzy, just a printed page with a photo of Janelle and Elijah standing beneath string lights. The write-up told their journey in quiet detail, from backyard wedding to reclaimed home, from mockery to mastery. Orders surged, but they held to their values: honest work, fair pay, and community uplift. They hired one more part-time helper and measured every new commitment against the promise they had made on that crooked arch day. Never lose sight of why they began. One summer afternoon at a cafe in downtown Newark, Janelle ran into an old classmate. The woman's eyes widened behind designer frames. "Janelle, I heard about you too. Your workshop, your home. People say your pieces are beautiful." She paused, then lowered her voice. "I remember your wedding. I judged too quickly. I am sorry." Janelle studied her face, searching for sincerity, then smiled. "Thank you. No malice, no lecture, just acceptance." The classmate nodded. "You and Elijah built something real." Even with success, challenges persisted. A harsh winter froze pipes beneath the house. A leaky roof threatened the workshop. Elijah injured his shoulder lifting heavy wood, and a doctor warned him to rest. They tapped savings, reconfigured small loans, and rallied a tiny crew, Kesha, Tamika, and Janelle's younger brother, to shore up repairs. Janelle scrubbed walls, Tamika ran for supplies, and Kesha documented progress for a follow-up feature. What could have been another heartbreak turned into a testament of solidarity. When the repairs were finished, they toasted with hot cocoa beneath winter lights, hearts warm against the cold. They had weathered storms, both literal and figurative, and emerged stronger together. That spring, Janelle planted a rose bush in the backyard, her grandmother's favorite. The first bloom opened on the anniversary of their wedding, petals deep red against fresh green leaves. Elijah cut a single rose and handed it to Janelle. "For every laugh they aimed at us," he said. She pressed it to her heart. Behind them, the workshop door creaked as Kesha and Tamika emerged, each holding a potted rose, one for Kesha's corner of the yard, one for Tamika's. In that moment, the very soil that had once been trampled by mockery bloomed into forgiveness and renewal. Years later, walking the property at dusk, Janelle marveled at how far they had come. The house stood proud, fresh paint, a sturdy porch, a welcome mat underfoot. The workshop gleamed with polished wood. The yard overflowed with life. Sunflowers as tall as teenagers, herbs spilling from raised beds, and rows of roses in many hues. She paused at the wooden swing, its chains newly oiled, and sat down. Elijah joined her, handing her a glass of iced tea. They rocked gently, listening to crickets and the distant hum of the city. No words were needed. In this reclaimed space, echoes of past laughter had been replaced by a steady, peaceful rhythm. They had shown up for each other when it mattered most, and, in doing so, transformed wounds into wisdom. On Sunday mornings, they opened their doors to friends and neighbors, a simple pop-up for coffee and conversation. Strangers became familiar faces, sharing stories of hardship and hope. Kesha taught weekend photography basics. Tamika hosted meal-swapping events for single parents. Janelle and Elijah serve as quiet anchors, offering space, tools, and sometimes jobs. The property no longer belonged only to them. It belonged to everyone who walked its path seeking refuge, skills, or companionship. It had become a living tapestry woven from threads of mockery, resilience, and grace. When people asked Janelle about the wedding, was it magical? She simply smiled. It was perfect. Perfection, for her, was never in grand gestures or viral moments. It was in two people choosing each other over every obstacle, building a life from scraps, and refusing to let laughter dictate their worth. The backyard that had been the scene of scorn became the heart of an ever-growing community. No speeches, no awards, just a life lived quietly, courageously, and abundantly. When Janelle looked at the crooked arch in the photograph, she no longer saw imperfection. She saw the truest alignment. She and Elijah had not walked toward spotlight. They had walked toward a promise. The bench where he first offered her his last slice of pizza still stood by the library, weathered and steady, a reminder that beginnings often look ordinary. There would always be bills, deadlines, and unexpected repairs. There would also be warm bread from the oven, soft music from the radio, and hands that sought each other in the dark. Janelle had learned that love is not the absence of struggle. It is what endures through it. And because of that, the home they built held more than furniture and paint. It held a legacy. On a quiet anniversary evening, they lit a few lanterns and sat with Kesha and Tomika beneath the string lights. The roses rustled. Laughter rose and fell. Someone began to hum an old song, and the tune threaded through the yard like a gentle ribbon. Janelle glanced at Elijah and knew that the life they had chosen, piece by piece, day by day, was exactly the life they wanted. If anyone asked how it all began, she would tell them the truth. With a backyard, a crooked arch, a silver band engraved with small initials, and a decision to keep showing up. And if they asked how it endured, she would say, by choosing grace, working hard, and making room for others. That was the whole of it. That was enough. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.